Welcome to the Vietnamese Poetry, Literature channel. Today we will listen to the work, The First Cold Wind of the Season, by author Thach Lam. Let's listen. This morning, winter suddenly came, without warning. Just yesterday it was still warm and sunny, the late October sun cracked the field soil, and dried the fallen leaves. Sun and her sister played with chicken grass in the fields and felt hot and sweaty. However, after a night of showers, the sky suddenly changed to a north wind, then the cold came from nowhere, making people think it was the middle of cold winter. Sun threw off the blanket and woke up, but he didn't get out of bed right away like usual. He sat with his hands tucked into the bundle, next to the baby, still holding his hand and sleeping soundly. Ms. Sun and Mother Sun had woken up and were fanning the stove to make tea to drink. Sun saw that everyone was wearing cold clothes. Looking out into the yard, Sun saw white, dry land, and the wind always blew up small dust curtains, blowing and crunching dry leaves. The sky is not overcast, it is completely milky white. The orchids are in pots, their leaves are shaking and seem to be sharp because of the cold. Sun also felt cold, so he quickly grabbed the blanket and covered his head and called out to his sister. Sun's mother heard it, put down the cup of tea, and told Lan, "Go into the room and get a basket of clothes, Mom will put them on for you, let's go." Then turned back and told Sun, "Come here and sit warm. Step wisely to let the baby sleep." Sun pulled the blanket up to cover her and sat cross-legged next to the water tray. Sun's mother poured a cup for him. Sun took the cup of hot tea and held it to his face and cheek to warm it, then put his face in the cup's mouth to let the steam rise. Mrs. Sun often says that she does this to keep her eyes open. The old nurse ruffled her torn cotton blouse, carried a bucket of water from downstairs, and whispered while saying, "So cold. Scooping water freezes your hands." She raised her hand to warm it over the furnace. Mother Sun asked, "This year it gets cold earlier than usual, right?" The old nurse seemed to remember and replied, "It's not as good as the year I went to weigh rice by the river. Damn, how cold it is. When I woke up in the morning, she sent me to the market, I was shivering." Sun also remembers the cold that year very clearly, as if it were only recently. Early that morning, Sun's mother also sat down to drink tea like this morning and also took out her cold coat to wear. Ms. Lan came out of the room, carrying a basket of clothes and placing it on her head. Sun's mother put the sale rack in the pile of cold clothes. Sun recognized the same shirts Sun had worn last year and the year before, a dark brown sanitary shirt with a felt shirt sewn with red thread. Sun held up the shirts and felt his hands were cool. From the clothes, the slightly musty smell of fabric folded for a long time in the trunk made Sun remember the early days of the cold season long ago, when Sun was a child. Sun's mother held up an old but still healthy cotton blouse and said, "This is Ms. Duyen's shirt. Duyen is Sun's little sister, who died when she was 4 years old. When Sun's mother mentioned it, Sun missed you, touched you and loved you so much." The old nanny, who raised Duyen from birth, reached for the shirt and turned it over and over to look at it, her hands caressing the seams. Even if she were still alive now, she wouldn't be able to wear it. Sun's mother remained silent and said nothing. But when it was time to tell Sun to put his shirt back on, Sun saw his mother's eyes a little teary. Sun had already put on warm clothes, both a red felt shirt and a sanitary shirt, and on top of that, he was wearing a long dark cotton shirt. Sun stood on the bed in front of his mother, turned around 3 or 4 times to let Sun's mother look at her shirt. Finally, Sun's mother smoothed the hems of her shirt, then pushed Sun away, saying, "Okay, I'm going to play." Sun dressed up and invited her to the market. Sun's house turned its back to the market, next to a row of thatched houses of poor people whom Sun knew because they still borrowed money from Sun's house. Sun knew that the children of those families were probably waiting for him at the end of the market right now to fight and win. It wasn't a trading day, so the market was empty. A few lonely shops are windy, scattered with dirty garbage mixed with fallen leaves from trees. The strong wind made Sun feel cold and sting his eyes. But the horizon is clearer than usual. Villages far away from Sun can be seen as clearly as if they were near. The ground was tight, and cracked in small lines, making a sharp sound under the footsteps of the two sisters. At the end of the market, I saw children gathering around and playing. When they saw the Sun sisters coming, they all looked happy, but they still stood far away, not daring to pounce. They seemed to know their poor fate, although Sun and his sister still played with them cordially, not arrogant and contemptuous like Sun's cousins. Kuk, Zan, Tai, and Tuk nearly opened their eyes to look at Sun's new clothes. Sun noticed that they were dressed no differently than usual, the same silver-brown clothes that were torn and patched in many places. But today, their lips are purple, and through the torn clothes, their skin is dark. Every time the wind comes, they tremble, their teeth chatter together. Zan came to touch Sun's shirt. He had never seen a shirt like that before. Sun flipped open the hem of his dark shirt and held out his sanitary shirt and evening shirt for everyone to see. One child clicked his tongue and said, "This shirt is very hot. It probably cost a silver coin to buy, not much, you guys." Another said, "My teacher also had a shirt like that in the past, but later he sold it to his manager and lost it." Tuk innocently raised his eyes and asked Sun, "You bought this in Hanoi, right?" Sun puffed his chest and replied, "In Hanoi, there's nothing to do here. My mother even promised to buy me a sweater for even more money." Ms. Lan suddenly raised her hand to wave at a little girl, who had been leaning against the shop's pillar, and called out, "Why don't you come here, Heen? Come play with me." Heen is the girl next door, friends with Lan and Duyen. Sun saw that she didn't call her to come back, so he walked closer and saw the little girl standing next to the shop's pillar, wearing only a tattered shirt, exposing her back and arms. Ms. Lan also came to ask, "Why is your shirt so torn, Heen? Where is the good shirt?" The little girl said sadly, "I'm out of shirts, I only have this one left. Why don't you tell me to sew for you?" Sun now suddenly remembered that Heen's mother was very poor. Her only job was to find crabs and snails, so she couldn't find money to buy clothes for her child. Sun felt moved by pity, just like how in the morning Sun missed Duyen, who used to talk to Heen and play in the garden. A good thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Sun came closer to her and whispered, "Or we should give him an old cotton shirt, sister." "Yes, that's right. Let me go get it." With the innocence of youth, Lan eagerly ran home to get her shirt. Sun stood quietly waiting, suddenly feeling warm and happy. But Sun's happiness did not last long. When the meal came home, Sun couldn't see his mother anywhere, so he asked his old nanny, "Where is my wife going? Ms. Lan and you should eat first. My aunt went out to celebrate the death anniversary and didn't return until noon." Then the old nurse looked clearly at Sun's face and asked, "Did you bring Heen an old cotton shirt?" Sun replied in surprise, "Right. But how do you know?" "That's what Sin told me. Sin is Sun's cousin. He always talks rude to the old nanny, so the nanny hates it. He also said that when she comes back, he will come and tell her so that he can be beaten." Sun was so worried, he was about to eat, put down his chopsticks, stood up, and begged. "So what to do now? Exposed breasts. If my wife knew, she would die. Who told you to foolishly give him his shirt? Now you go and tell Heen that it's okay to return it." Sun quickly went to the market to look for the porch but couldn't find her there. When he got home, he didn't see anyone, and his mother wasn't home either. The two sisters were afraid and went to the fields to look but could not find him. It was almost afternoon. Sun and her sister had not yet asked for their shirts. "Lan blames me. Why did you think to give him that shirt? Are you going to scold him to death now?" Who told you to come get it? If I don't come back to get it, you won't know. Ms. Lan calmly argued. Well, I have to go home now, I don't know what to do. But I'm so scared. Ms. Lan sighed, held my hand tightly, and comforted me. I have to go home anyway. Luckily, maybe my mother won't scold me. The two sisters nervously sneaked home together. At the door, Sun heard his mother's voice inside, along with another woman's voice, which sounded familiar. Lan took Sun's hand and walked in. The two sisters stood there in surprise when they saw Heen and her mother sitting in a small chair on the ground in front of their mother, holding an old cotton shirt in their hands. Seeing her two children return, Sun's mother looked up and said seriously, Hey, you two are back. So where is my cotton shirt that you just gave it away? Sun was scared, bowed his head silently, and hid behind her. Uncle Heen smiled and said, When I came home and saw him wearing a cotton shirt, I immediately asked him. He said it was Uncle Sun's for him. I knew you were joking here, so I had to rush back here to return it to you. Well, now, please allow my aunt to leave. Mother Sun asked. Heen doesn't have a shirt? My family is suffering so much these days. I can't save any money to make clothes for my children. So he still wears the same shirt from last year. Sun's mother reached for the copper bowl, took the money and gave it to Uncle Heen. Here, I'll lend you 5 dimes to make a shirt for you. When Uncle Heen walked out the door, Sun's mother waved her two children closer, then lovingly hugged her and said, My two children are so precious, dare to freely take their clothes and give them to others without fear of being scolded by mother? At the end of the work, please support me with the like button and subscribe to the channel to listen to more works.